Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Ballava Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballava Girivaradari Gopi Jana Ballava Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Ballava Girivaradari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shodanandana Brajajana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shodanandana Jamuna Tiravana Chori Jamuna Tiravana Chori Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tira Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunjabi. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. I can just take that. I don't need this. Oh. What's the where are we? 1 Okay. So reading today from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service, and text number 12. Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagyam yuktaya Pashyantyatmani chatmanang Bhaktya shruta gahitaya Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagya yuktaya Pashyantyatmani chatmanang Bhaktya shruta grihitaya. Easy verse, others? Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagya yuktaya Pashyantyatmani chatmanang Bhaktya shruta grihitaya. Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagya yuktaya Pashyantyatmani chatmanang Bhaktya shruta grihitaya. Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagya yuktaya Tachchridhana munayo Jnana vairagya yuktaya Pashyantyatmani chatmanang Bhaktya shruta grihitaya. Vaishnavis? Shuta Grihitaya Tatshradhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyantyatmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shuta Grihitaya. Tat, that, Shradhana, seriously inquisitive, Munaya, sages, Jnana, knowledge, Vairagya, detachment, Yuktaya, well-equipped with, Pashanti, see, Atmani, within himself, Cha, and, Atmanam, the Paramatma, Bhaktya, in devotional service, Shruta, the Vedas, Grihitaya, well received. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Please repeat. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. And now the golden voice of Jai Jagadish Prabhu to read the purport.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord, Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman, or Paramatma realization of the absolute truth, is but a partial realization. There are 4 different types of human beings: the Karmis, the Jnanis, the Yogis, and the devotees. The Karmis are materialistic, whereas the other 3 are transcendental. The first-class transcendentalists are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second-class transcendentalists are those who have partially realized the plenary portion of the Absolute Person. And the third-class transcendentalists are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, which is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed the point that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realizations of the Absolute Truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, i.e., the paths of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the Absolute Truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge, combined with detachment from material association, and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the Absolute Truth. Devotional service is not therefore meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are 3 classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees are the neophytes who have no knowledge and are not detached from material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshiping the deity in the temple are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second-class devotional position. In the second-class position, the devotee can see four principles in the devotional line, namely, the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of a second-class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. A third-class devotee, therefore, has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavat. The number one Bhagavat is the established personality of devotee, and the other Bhagavatam is the message of Godhead. The third-class devotee, therefore, has to go to the personality of devotee in order to learn the instructions of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be a representative of Sukadeva Goswami, like Sutta Goswami, and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing, so one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead, as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from the professional man who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature, like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by the previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literatures, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless, and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Sruti, Smriti, Purana, or Pancharatra authorities, the make-show of devotional service should at once be rejected. As an unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literatures, one can see the all-pervading localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangun Langayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubi Eva Cha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I'm very blessed to be here in the association of all the wonderful devotees in New Dwarka. Thank you so much for having me. This is one of those verses in Purports that's so pregnant with information. As a speaker, I barely know where to start. And there's only X number of... What time is this class over? More or less? Okay. Wow. So, anyway, got to start somewhere. Translation begins with a seriously inquisitive student or sage. So, I was listening to a tape of Srila Prabhupada. I believe it was here in 1974 in New Dwarka. And Prabhupada was speaking about King Parikshit and how serious the king was, knowing that he had 7 days to live. Can you imagine if we realized, if we knew we actually had a death notice in 7 days, we're going to leave our body? What would we do? I think all the niyamagraha and all the mundane activities, we'd set everything aside and totally focus. How serious was King Parikshit? For 7 days and 7 nights, he didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He simply heard the Srimad-Bhagavatam. In that talk, Srila Prabhupada said, but we must be more serious than Parikshit Maharaj, because we don't know if we will live 7 more seconds. Yes? Anyone in this room, please raise your hand if you're assured you will live beyond 7 seconds. So he was at least assured he had 7 days. So how serious we should be. When I was arriving, I got off the airport, I was checking my phone, messages. There was a message from a hospital in Hawaii. One of my main worker, manager at our beautiful temple in Hawaii, he left his body unexpectedly. I'm still shocked. You'd think after being a devotee for 45 plus years, and you hear someone left their body, you'd like, yeah, that happens. And we all know all the verses, right? Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityor. Yeah. For one who was born, death is certain. It was in King Yudhishthira who answered the question, what is the most wonderful thing? Ahanyahani bhutani gachantiha yamalayam shisha stavramichanti kim accharyamatakparam. He said, ahanyahani bhutani, day after day, gachantiha yamalayam. We are seeing that people are dying. Shesha, the rest of them. Shesha and stavram means like permanence or stability. Shesha stavramichanti. Everyone is somehow thinking, but I'm not going to die. Therefore, kim accharyamatakparam. What is more wonderful than this? What is more amazing? So King Parikshit was so serious to hear. And that hearing is where spiritual life begins. The process begins by hearing. In fact, when he asked, we're in a whole section of blockbuster verses, right? It's like bang, bang, blockbuster, blockbuster, verse after verse in this section of the Bhagavatam. So I'll throw some previews of coming attractions. So he asked the question, Atakpachchami sangsiddhim yoginam paramam guru purushajya yakkaram riyamanasya sarvata. So he posed a very serious question to Sukadeva Goswami. He is saying, my dear guru of all gurus, I beg to inquire from you, what is the process of self-realization? What should a person do in all situations in knowing that death is now coming? And Sukadeva Goswami so much appreciated the question of King Parikshit. Just like, ever notice how if someone asks us a wonderful question, how enlivening it is? Like, what is the purpose of life? Or, geez, I've seen you Hare Krishnas. Could you tell me a little something about it? Or, my grandfather just died. I'm thinking something about death. What happens? Isn't that enlivening? So, Sukadeva Goswami was, he practically fell off his asana. Vriyan esha te prashna. He says, this question is vriyan. It is glorious. Krito loka dharmrepada. It is beneficial to all men. Atmavit samatak pungsam, and it is authorized. This is the question that all great sages so much appreciate. Because Shrotav Yadishu Yakparaha, that Shrotav Yadishu, that means of all subject matters, of hearing, Shrotav Yadishu Yakparaha, this is the topmost. What should one do when he is preparing for death? What is the purpose of life? So, his answer, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyashchishtatabhayam. He answers, Tasmat, meaning the long and short of it, bottom line. Tasmat Bharata, descendant of Bharat. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. No ambiguity in what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He gives 3 different names. Sarvatma, Bhagavan, and Hari. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyashchishtabayam. If one actually wants to be fearless in all circumstances, he should hear, chant, and remember the glories of the Lord. Hear, chant, and remember. Now, somebody asked me a question the other day. Of the 3, hearing, chanting, and remembering, what's the most important? Well, I thought for a minute. That was my sort of knee-jerk reaction. Hearing is the most important. But I guess it's a matter of what angle of vision we're looking at. Because shastrically, if you pushed me and asked me what's ultimately the most important, I would say remembering. Because if shastrically there are so many, like when Mahaprabhu was speaking to Sanatan Goswami, he quoted that very famous verse from the Padma Purana, where smartavya satatang vishnurva smartam yona jatu chit sarve vidinashedas yor eti yor eva kinkara. This verse means that always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all the other instructions of all the Shrutis, all the scriptures, and all that, even the instructions of the spiritual master, it is meant to be maidservants to always remember and never forget. There's another similar verse that has that same ending. Yena tena pakarena manak krishnena vetayet sarve vidinashedas yor eti yor vikinkara. Again, the same ending, meant to be subservient to the instruction of yena tena, which means somehow or other, yena tena pakarena manak krishnena vetayet, somehow or other fix your mind upon Krishna. In the Vishnu Purana, Sahanishtang Mahachchidram Samoha Vibramaha, Sahanishtang Mahachchidram Samoha Shruti Vibramaha, Young Muhurtam Chamamvapi Vasudevam Nachintayet. That if even for a moment, remembrance of Vasudeva is missed, that is the greatest loss, that is the greatest illusion, and that is the greatest anomaly. Our mind and heart should always be fixed upon Krishna. So we can say that is the goal of hearing and chanting, is to come to that point. Now, hearing is most important to begin the process. And just like in the Krishna book, I believe it's the very beginning of Prabhupada's preface, where he quotes the verse, Nivritti tarashara upagiyamanan bhavoshadatchotar manobaramat ka uttama shloka gunana vadat puman virijeta vinapashugnat. That Nivritti tarashar upagiyamanat, by that which is sung, Nivritti tarshai, all this dirt and filth within the heart, Nivritti, we become freed from. Bhavoshadatchotra, but the medicine which is taken by the ear. Manobramat, which is very pleasing to the mind. Pibanti bhaktama atmasatang katamritam shravana puteshu sambritam. Another beautiful verse. Pitam, this means to drink. The Vaishnavas, the devotees, drink this nectar of hearing the pastimes of Krishna into the ear. Pibanti katamritam shravana puteshu sampritam. So puteshu sampritam means that they're filling the holes of the ears. And punanti te vishayavadushitashiyam. That by hearing, taking this medicine in our ears, it purifies the desire for material enjoyment. And then one goes back to the lotus feet of Krishna. Now, hearing is so critical. And hearing, when we begin to hear, we can't help but speak. We can't help but chant. If you really hear the glories of Krishna, if you hear something amazing, don't you want to tell somebody about it? Even something mundane. I remember I was taking a japa walk one morning up this hill we call Govardhan Hill. It's, anyway, in Hawaii. It overlooks the ocean. And I saw, for the first time in my life, I saw a moon bow. And it was interesting because it was the full moon. It was a setting right after Gaur Purnima. So it was a full moon. The moon had gone down. I looked over the ocean. I saw a white rainbow. I've been around the ocean better part of my life. The first time I ever saw a moonbow, amazing. Oh, I just wanted to tell everybody about it. This is just a moonbow. I mean, some mundane phenomenon. What to speak of when we begin to hear about Krishna? You can't help yourself, but you want to speak, you want to chant. And plus, when we hear about the importance of the holy name, how that holy name is non-different from Krishna. When we chant the holy name, Krishna dances on our tongue. And from our tongue, he dances into our heart and steals our heart away. Yes. So you can't help but want to chant. It's so wonderful. And leads then ultimately to always remembering. Anyway, these are the first three of the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. The final, Atman Nivedanam. That's where one totally surrenders everything to Krishna. That's not so easy because we're very resistant to surrender. We've got so many things that we are attached to that we don't want to let go. And Krishna wants us to let go. Therefore, there's a very wonderful story how Krishna arranged to set the example for all of us to learn how to let go of our attachments. There was a great king, but in this particular case, this king took birth in a line of demons, which is not unheard of. What about Prahlad? Prahlad have a pretty nice dad? That was like the first case of child abuse, wasn't it? The original. So Prahlad was born in a family of demons. And his grandson also, his name was King Bali. And but like Prahlad, even though he was born in a demoniac situation, he was a great Vaishnava. And Bali, being a great Vaishnava, was always worshiping and very charitable to the Brahmanas. So the Brahmanas, being pleased with Bali, bestowed a blessing upon him. They gave him something very, very powerful called the Brahma Tejas. And when he was now endowed with a Brahma Tejas, he got all of his army, a huge army together, and they decided, now we've got the power, we're going to go up to the heavenly planets, and we're going to take over. We're going to usurp the position of Indra. But you might be asking the question, wait a minute. We just said he's a Vaishnava, a great Vaishnava. Why would a Vaishnava, when he's given power, go up and harass the demigods? Well, Krishna likes to arrange these kind of things because sometimes the demigods are not always so pure, often called Sakama devotees. So what happens when the demigods become harassed? Where do they turn? They turn to Krishna. Yeah? There's so many examples. So, being actually one of the greatest of all Vaishnavas, one of the 12 Mahajans, King Bali, he took his troops up and went before King Indra, and as soon as Indra saw the brilliance of King Bali, he was as brilliant, more brilliant than the sun. He turned to Brihaspati, the priest of the demigods, and said, "What do we do?" Brihaspati said, "You can't defeat him. We got to get out of here." Right? Like they say, get out of Dodge. And that's what they did. They left. There wasn't even a battle. He was so powerful. Now, after some time, the demigods started to become very morose, depressed, and dejected. Can you imagine if we were all kicked out of New Dwarka? We couldn't do our service, right? We'd start really, really missing it. So, their mother, Aditi, was feeling the great pain because she was the mother of the demigods. And she was feeling the pain of her children. So she, with great veneration, prayed to Lord Vishnu to please come, enter into my womb, and reinstall my children in their rightful position. Then Aditi and Kashyapa united. They performed all of the proper sanskars. And sure enough, in due course of time, this beautiful young child, golden child, dwarf-like, small, his name was Vamana. Vamana, I believe Vamana means dwarf-like. Is that right? Another name of Vamana is Upendra. So in Sanskrit, this word upa means like beneath. So Upendra, it was referring to the younger brother of Indra. And also, it will, as we discuss, if they don't pull a plug on me, he also is called Trivikram because of, and there may be other names, but they're the only three that come to my mind. Anyway, he was a beautiful, beautiful child. And when the daughter of King Bali, Ratnamala, when Ratnamala saw this beautiful child, she was thinking in her heart, if I could just have this child as mine and have him suck from my breast. And all the demigods, they were offering wonderful prayers because Vamana had come to reinstate them. And they were offering gifts and so on and so forth. So then, Vamana went and approached, Vamana went and approached King Bali. And he was very Brahminical, a young brahmachari, and he had a begging bowl. And when he approached King Bali, naturally, King Bali was very charitable, and he said, "Oh, my dear Brahmana, what can I offer you?" And Vamana said, "Well, I don't need much. All I'd like is 3 steps of land." Bali responded that, "Why are you only asking for 3 steps of land?" Because he was tiny. He said, "I can give you anything you want." Vamana responded, "But my dear king, you have conquered the entire universe, but I can see that you are not satisfied. Myself, on the other hand, I've turned inward to taste the nectar within my own heart. Therefore, I require very little. I'm completely satisfied from within. 3 steps of land, that's all I need." Now, Sukracharya, his spiritual master, was standing by listening. So Sukracharya pulls Vamana aside, and he says, "My dear Vamana, don't go for it. It's a trick." I'm sorry? Bali. Thank you. I get a little dyslexic here. He takes Bali aside. Thank you. And correct me if I... He takes Bali aside, and he says, "It's a trick. The demigods, he's in cahoots with the demigods. So don't give him anything." So as we know, King Bali rejected the order of his spiritual master because it was contrary to Scripture. And therefore, he turned to Vamana and he said, "Please proceed." As soon as he said this, Vamana, little dwarf, beautiful, began to expand and expand. He got larger and larger. He blocked out the sun. You couldn't see really where he began and where he ended. And he took his first step. And with that first step, he covered all of the lower planetary systems and the middle planetary system. With his second step, he went Svargaloka and the heavenly planets, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, the planets of the sages. That foot of his went past Brahmaloka, Svetadweep, and the toe went right through the covering of the universe. And as it did, the causal ocean began to flow in across his feet. And as it crossed the feet of Vamana, non-different from Krishna himself, it became so purifying. That is the Ganges River. Now, a little aside here. That Ganges River, by the way, when it originally came, was flowing all throughout the heavenly planets. It wasn't here on this earth. But there was one king, Bhagirati. So Bhagirati wanted that the Ganges would also flow here on the earth because he had many forefathers. And for the purification of his forefathers and for generations to come, he performed great penances and austerities and worship of Lord Brahma. And after, I believe, thousands of years, Lord Brahma finally came and said, "Okay, what would you like?" He explained he wanted the Ganges to come. And Lord Brahma said, "Okay, we can do that, but there's one problem. When that Ganges comes flowing down, it'll destroy everything. Therefore, we're going to have to get Lord Shiva to appear, and because that his matted locks will be able to cushion it." By the way, doesn't Lord Shiva sort of sound like the original Rasta? I mean, think about it. These Rastas are like cheap knockoffs of the original Lord in the form of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva he's got the matted hair. He smokes ganja. Right? He doesn't bathe regularly. He has very questionable company. He loves to dance, and he plays a really cool drum. Right? He's like the original. So these guys, they think it was Bob Marley was the first to sort of set this standard. But anyway, we'll have to set them straight. Anyway, so then the Ganges came, and we are so blessed to have it here. In fact, Mahaprabhu and Lord Chaitanya came. Lord Chaitanya took his birth right by the Ganges, isn't it? And so many pastimes of the Ganges. Mahaprabhu told us that if even a breeze crosses the Ganges and comes upon us, we can develop pure love of God. And when he debated with the Digvijay, what did he ask him to do? Compose verses about the Ganges. Very, very purified. This is all from Vamana. Well, anyway, back to our story. So, at this point, Vamana turned to King Bali, and he said, "You are a cheater. You've cheated me. You promised me 3 steps of land. There's only 2. Arrest him." And immediately he was arrested. He was tied up just like a common thief with the ropes of Varuna. And Ratnamala Remember her first prayer? I wish I could have him as my son, suck from my breath. So she sort of changed that prayer. Said, if I ever have the opportunity for him to suck from my breast, I will coat my breast with poison. Any guesses who she became in the future? Yes, this is the backstory of Putana. King Bali, in that situation, completely bound, everything taken away, humiliated in front of all of his followers, was in complete ecstasy. He was ecstatic because he saw that Krishna had now come and was taking everything away from him. We all know this verse. Yasyaham anugunami harasyeta danam shanai tato danam chijantyasya svajana dukadukitam. This is when Krishna himself spoke to Yudhishthir and said, my greatest stroke of mercy is when I take away. Harasyeta danam shanai. Hari, one who takes away. Tato danam, tata, what followed? Adanam. When one is adanam, when one's wealth is taken away, tato danam jajantyasya, svajana duki, one's own family may reject and may become very displeased with him when he takes everything away. Yes? So he was in that, and he began offering very, very wonderful prayers to Vamana. And Vamana, as he was praying, he was saying that, my dear Lord, everything that I have, everything I've had in the past, everything I'll have, everything I will ever have in the future, my dear Lord, I offer to you. So, and then he said, and now you can take your last step right on my head. We've all heard this story. What happens next is even more interesting, or equally as interesting. The plot thickens. So, at this point, Vamana says to King Bali, I would like to actually have you remain as the king of heaven, but I can't do that because I've already promised. My mission was to reinstate the demigods in their rightful position. I've got something much better for you. I'm going to send you to be a king of a place that is millions times more opulent than the heavenly planets. And it's actually in your own neighborhood. I'm going to send you to this planet called Sutala. A planet so heavenly that if the demigods can't even imagine how heavenly such a place is. And furthermore, he said, not only will you go to Sutala, but I'm going to go with you. Because as the king there, many people will want to come and get your darshan and get your blessings. And I will be your doorkeeper, and we will live forever in Sutala. And so they went. And daily, people were coming, and Bali was giving so many gifts and giving darshan and so many wonderful instructions. But amazingly, as opulent as it was, he never ever thought for a moment anything was his. He saw everything as a property of Krishna. Meanwhile, back in Vaikuntha, the goddess of fortune, well, she was told, her husband told her, I was going, my dear. I have some business. I have to go and reinstate the demigods, but I will be back. But he didn't come back. How long does it take to reinstate the demigods? When is my husband coming back? And she was starting to experience so much separation, she couldn't stand it anymore. So then, who appears on the scene? Narada Muni. Narada Muni is that personality that comes to really enhance Krishna's pastimes. Just like what he did with Kamsa, right? Kamsa, the Lord has already taken birth. Demigods are also taking birth, right? So he sort of threw a little fuel on the fire. So Narada told the goddess of fortune that he was in Sutala, and he'd become the servant of King Bali. What to do? So she decided, I'm going to disguise myself. And she did. She disguised herself as an old but very stately looking woman. And she immediately went to Sutala. And there she went. She went to the palace. And she opened the door. It was early. But already there was a line of people waiting to come and see King Bali. And she enters and she stands off to the side. And she watches person after person after person coming, getting darshan, and walking away with wonderful gifts. Finally, it's evening. And everyone has gone, but she's there. This old woman is still there. King Bali couldn't help but notice. He said, "My dear virtuous woman, you're obviously in need of something. Please ask. What can I give you? Anything." She says, "Anything?" And then immediately, she manifests herself as a goddess of fortune. Said, "I want my husband back." She's in tears. She's in such separation. And at that moment, knowing that he had to fulfill her will, Bali also became so tearful. And at this very moment, Lord Vamana appears, seeing both of his devotees in such great distress. He thinks, it's a very difficult situation, isn't it? What do I do? I have to choose. But you know what? Vamana is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He decided, I'll just divide myself. I'll take my beautiful wife and return with her. My dear love, we will go back to Vaikuntha together. Please take me by the hand. And they go back to Vaikuntha, and he would remain forever with King Bali as his servant. So what we learn from this wonderful lesson that Vamana Dev has come to teach us is that we should ultimately be willing and ready and praying to be able to give everything to Krishna. Because what do we have that isn't Krishna's? The only thing ultimately we have is our heart, is our love. So if we very seriously embrace this process that Srila Prabhupada has given us, hearing, chanting, etc., these wonderful angas of devotional service, then in time, as this process continues to evolve, then Krishna will take those things away from us, purify our hearts, and ultimately we'll go back to home, back to Godhead. So I think we're way past our time. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.